Hello everyone, I'm here with Hamish again today. We have a bit of a story time to tell you guys today. Something happened in our lives a couple of years ago. We always thought it would make a great YouTube video, we just kind of wanted to wait a little while to tell it.
Oh, this is the best YouTube video.
You're
going to be like, what's the story goes on and on, eh?
Yeah, and you guys know I don't really do story time videos on my channel because nothing that interesting really happens in my life. And this is something we would have rather have not happened really. But
yeah.
At least it'll make a good story for you guys to listen to, and maybe it'll teach you something.
It'll teach you a lesson about trust, and also we will not put the names of the people in.
We'll tell you what happened, but we're going to be vague on certain details just for safety. I think something important to mention too is that like a lot of this Hamish actually kept secret from me.
Yeah.
While it's happening, so he's going to tell lots of the story. I know it all, but Hamish is going to let you know.
This goes all the way back, actually. The first thing is while this was happening, Shannon was, I think you were pregnant?
I was planning the wedding.
Oh, sorry, that's right.
It was ages ago, planning the wedding. I was so stressed.
Shannon was planning the wedding. I was starting a new business.
You Gaia?
We were doing lots of products with XO Beauty, so I was really busy. There was just lots going on at the time. It was full on. And we have a rental property. So Shannon's grandparents used to live in that rental property.
Yeah, back in the day I bought my nan and granddad a house to live in. Then as a lot of you guys know, if you've been on this journey with me for a long time, my nana got sick and she passed away, and then my granddad suddenly passed a while later. So obviously we had a rental all of a sudden that my grandparents were living in, and we were like, cool, we'll keep this property as an investment and get a tenant.
Yeah. Now, it came up to the point where the COVID lockdown, the very first one, was just about to start. We'd put out applications to get some tenants in, and we were looking at a few people, and we decided to end up going with a single mum. The only thing was that COVID lockdown was being announced, and I'd done all the checks and everything, the reference checks, and that all worked out fine. But we kind of needed to get her in there before the lockdown started. So I think it was the night before I said, yep, cool, you're good to go, this lockdown's happening, you need to get moved in now. So she went and got moved in, and then obviously I left her to it. I did the inspection checks, things progressed for 6 months or so, and everything was good. I heard nothing bad.
The property looked mint.
I was all happy with everything, so I thought, oh yeah, this is really good. And then time sort of passed on. It was about 8 months later, and then there was a payment that got missed.
What happened was a few weeks had passed, and then I looked and someone else had paid the rent, a different name. You know, when you get a payment into your bank account, it comes up with the name of the person that's transferring you. It said some different name, and I was like, that's, and then I scrolled back and I was like, hold on a second, we haven't actually gotten rent for 3 weeks or something.
3 weeks, yeah.
So I let Hamish know, and he was like, oh, that's weird.
So by that stage anyway, I was trying to contact the tenant constantly and was like, hey, what's going on? Do you need help, whatever, and was really trying to contact them without obviously just turning up.
If you guys didn't know, here in New Zealand, when you want to go visit your property, if there's tenants in it, of course you have to give them notice. It's the New Zealand law. So Hamish couldn't just turn up. He had to let them know, sort of time and date kind of thing. So he was trying to navigate that, but the tenant wasn't replying. And
I kept emailing, giving them the benefit of the doubt, and then it got to a point where I was like, I'm coming around in, what was it, 72 hours.
I can't remember. Yeah,
a set amount of hours. It was 2 days or something. I'll be at the property. I need to see what's going on. The 2 days have passed. That's fine. I decided to go around to the house after work, and this was in winter. And I don't know if you know, but in New Zealand, around sort of 5:30, 6 p.m, it starts to get really dark. I turn up to this property, which it's in a decent area. It's a decent house. It's not it's not bad or run down or anything. I turn up to this property, get out of the Range Rover, and I see 3 cars parked in the driveway. And I was like, this is random. They've got the shed door open, there's lights on the cars in the shed door. I'm not hearing back from the tenant at all. And
this is compared to usually Hamish turning up and meeting with the tenant for checks and, it just being her car.
Yeah, during the day. Nice, clean and tidy.
Yeah, it was just a different vibe, you said.
Yeah, it was just a different vibe, and I was like, oh, I've got to sort this out. I'm not leaving now. So I got out of the car. Then I walked down the driveway, and these guys are like, oh, who are you? And they were hitting me up, and I'm like, I'm the landlord here. Where's the head tenant? And then straight away the guy was like, oh, she doesn't live here anymore.
Because Hamish's first reaction when he was telling me about how she wasn't responding, he's like, is she all good? Like,
is she alive?
Yeah, like, what's happened to her? You know, a bit worried about her, to be honest.
Oh, and I forgot to say that when she wasn't replying, I actually applied to the tenancy tribunal, and I was like, nah, this person's ghosting me, I don't know if they're okay.
Every step along the way, just so we're clear, Hamish was like liaising with the tenancy tribunal, like, so it was all legal and done properly.
Yeah. Actually, that happened after this night. So the night I went there, these guys were like, you know, oh, who are you? They're like pretty like standoffish, hostile. It seemed dodge as. I've seen a lot of like TV shows. You see Breaking Bad, and you see like facial structure of people being very gaunt and thin, and I was like, oh God, like, who are you? You know, I just got that vibe of like, this ain't good. So I said I was the landlord, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, hey, like, oh, you've got to protect your property. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, where's the head tenant? And they said she no longer lives there, and I was just like, what the?
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? This is like, what? This is random. You can't just like. You can't just come in here all of a sudden, she no longer lives here. Who are you? How can I trust you?
Who are these people in the house?
Like, technically, they're trespassing, right? Unless, of course, she was to say they're her friends and her friends are staying at the house. It gets really great. But anyway, so that happened, and I was just like, this is just ridiculous. I'm like, well, who's this person that's paid Shannon this amount of money? And they're like, oh, this is this person. And then they said, oh, I'll go get her. She came out round the corner. And instantly, I was just like, this is some Breaking Bad bullshit going on here. Like, the vibe was weird as.
Sorry if you guys can hear something, it's just the baby monitor.
So she came around the corner, introduced herself, and said she wanted to take over the tenancy. And I was like, this is too whack. I later on figured out that the guys were working on stolen cars in the garage, etc. Anyway, so she rolls around, I want to take over the tenancy. I said, no, you can't do that. I need to locate this head tenant. I haven't heard from him in X amount of days.
Yeah.
And then she started telling me that, she could try and get in touch with her because I couldn't. I tried her phone, her email, everything. So I said, look, that's fine. These people have been in the house for who knows how long. I said, look, I'm going to head home tonight. Can you please try and contact her, tonight? And I'll get in touch with you then tomorrow. Because at that point, I couldn't kick them out. I don't know who they were. I went to went and got advice afterwards, and legally I'm not allowed to kick them out straight away anyway, which is real weird. And then the next morning I called up and I said, look, I don't know who you are. I haven't been able to locate the head tenant. You guys, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You've got your stuff in there. You need to be out within 48 hours or else it's going to be marked as trespassing unless I hear from, head tenant saying otherwise. So that was all good. I felt good about, hey, we can get them out, and I've given them ample time to actually move their stuff. I don't want to deal with it. And then all of a sudden, at like the 7th hour period, boom, I get an email comes through from the head tenant saying, oh, these people are my friends. It was a bit of a sob story about, my uncle had just passed away, and I was like, oh, fair enough, that's really sad. So look, I said to her, if you get the rent back paid straight away, and we cannot take it from this other person, we need it to come from you, because if I accepted that payment, it would be like, accepting contracts, kind of saying, hey, you're giving me money in return, I'm letting these other people stay here. So I didn't want to get into that. Like I said, on that 47th hour, she popped up, she got the rent back paid, and I was like, this is really, really random. So that happened. I went off and I said, well, she's paid it all back, that's fine. Legally, she's allowed to have friends staying there for a certain amount of time, I can't tell her otherwise. And we left it at that. When I went round that following day, I actually came past the people in the area, other people in the area, and I said, look, what's been going on? Has anything been going bad here? And they basically said to me, there's been some dodgy stuff going on around there. There was talks of theft, loud noises.
Police turning up to the house.
Police turning up that I never knew about. She had a kid, and the kid would get out of the house, and then the cops would, turn up to get him back there. And I was like, every single time I've been around here, I've never seen any of this. I've never heard about any of this partying. I've never heard from any of the neighbours bad news, any of the people in the area bad news. And I just got the vibe from people that this had been going on for a while and I had not known. It had all got cleared up. I wrote down a written warning and I moved on. But then further down the track, it was about at the 11th month period, there was more bad feedback, and I just gave another warning and I said, look, we need to sort of maybe look at parting ways if you can find another place, things like that. She'd only signed for 12 months and it was coming up. But then all of a sudden we weren't getting paid rent again. It was another 2 or 3 weeks that had gone by. And I was like, this is getting crazy. So I contacted her again and I said, look, I need to come around for another inspection. She wasn't replying, wasn't replying. I said, I'm coming around within, 78 hours or whatever. Oh, and she's like, oh no, can we organise it for another day? I said, I've tried over multiple emails to negotiate.
And don't forget, she was ghosting you tons too.
Oh, ghosting me all the time. And then
she would only reply once it got to the point where we were like, we've contacted the tribunal. And not to mention, Hamish would spend hours, because they don't make it easy. Like, the tribunal, it takes hours to either lodge the forms they require. You have to lodge all this evidence every single time. Pay money.
I had to pay money to lodge a complaint. So that first, where she abandoned it, I had to pay money, and then she turns up, and that's just my bad. I've wasted like
wasted time, wasted money.
It started getting dodgy again, and I said to her, look, I need to come for another inspection. I basically gave her heaps and heaps of time to arrange a time with me. She constantly ghosted me. And then I said, look, I'm coming in with it around in 78 hours, whatever it was, a couple of days. We will be coming at this time. We will be checking out the house to make sure it's fine. Sweet.
Because what's the law? It's like if someone's not replying, you can give them a certain amount of hours.
Like 3 days notice or something.
And that's like, we're coming for an
inspection. Don't quote me on the time periods I've said, but...
Yeah, we did it properly.
We
contacted the tribunal and did it all legit.
So I went around there... And it turned out it was about 5:30 again. I don't know why it turned out to be like another sort of late time where...
After work, I guess.
Yeah, after work. Transitioning from day to night. And I turned up at the house and she was not there, even after finally replying saying she would be there. She was not there at first, apparently. Or she just ghosted me. I went around the back of the house and out comes this guy that's just like scratching his like chest. He's not agitated, but he just couldn't sit still. He couldn't piece together proper words, and it was just real random. But I looked at the other person that was with me, that had come with me to give me a hand, and we were just like, we just got to go in and do this, and we can't let it keep going on. So I went into the house, and surprisingly, most of the furniture had been moved out bar a few key items. The house was actually clean, but I went past the bench in the kitchen, and it was quite dark, but I could see there was like a little cap and like tinfoil with a knife that, it looked like some form of drugs. I was just like, oh my gosh. And this guy was scratching himself. I was just kind of thinking to myself, please be something like weed. But as I moved into the house and went into the lounge, there was this other dude sitting on the couch, and he was talking on the phone, and I kind of walked in, look around, everything else looked clean and fine, there were no holes in the wall, and I said to him, I was like, hey, how's it going? And I've literally never experienced this, but the guy did not even look at me. He did not even acknowledge that I was there. You know how when you enter a room, naturally in your brain...
You'd at least glance at someone, like you'd be like...
You'd kind of, you naturally sort
even
of
if you were going to ignore the mate, you'd still like look at them a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So you would naturally sort of acknowledge someone visually that they're there. He did not do that at all. The whole time I was there, it's like he didn't look at either of us that were there. It was so random. And I said to this guy that was like scratching, and I said, look, you need to get the head tenant to contact me. I need to see them. You guys can't legally be here without her permission. I need to, see that there's been permission from her that you're allowed in here. I left it at that with him. That night I was like, this is real random. I did not expect to come into this at all. And this is where it got messed up. So I walked through to inspect the house, and I walked past the master bedroom, and there was like a lamp on at first, and I couldn't see quite into the room. Walk past the master bedroom, walk around, and then had a look at the house. Was like, oh, there's a tiny bit of carpet damage, like a little circle, whatever, that's fine. And then as we went to leave, I walked back past the master bedroom, and as I walked past the door, there was like I'm not kidding. There was like what looked like a gun, like a long barrel, pointed at me as I took like 3 or 4 steps. Remember, there was only a lamp on. I didn't even know anyone was in there. 3 or 4 steps past the door, and then I looked, and then as I came past the door and the barrel was at me, I saw the barrel like move down towards the ground, and I'd already found like what turned out to be slug guns at the house. So the barrel went down as I walked past, and I heard this person with a croaky voice, who I think was the head tenant, and she's like, "Hey Hamish," and I was just like, I walked past, and I'm like, I'm not engaging with this. I said to the other person that was with me, I was like, we need to get out of here. We went out the back, cool, left. Wrote an email saying that she ghosted me, gave warnings and all that sort of stuff, and basically said that it's not good enough. Sent an email saying I think we need to, part ways, because my key focus then was getting them out of the house, right? Like that's all we wanted to do at that point. We needed to do drug tests and things like that on the property, and I didn't really want to focus on doing that then.
You didn't want to confront them about that?
Oh,
because...
well, not really. I kind of wanted to be honest, I just wanted to get the house back.
Exactly.
Like
and
get the house back.
Yeah, but as if you want to confront, when people are, if they were on drugs, like you don't know how they would react.
Yeah, I already knew they were though.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, you hadn't had that as a fact yet.
No, well, I was pretty confident,
yeah.
And that's why the focus was getting them out. That night had passed, and I'd said to her, look, we need to look at parting ways at the end of this tenancy. Can you find a place? Da-da-da-da-da-da. Went back and forth, and she was kind of agreeing to it, not agreeing to it, and then she finally said, yep, that's fine, I'll move out at this date, which was cool. And it was real weird because the emails were coming at like 3 in the morning. You can see the timestamps, like 3 in the morning, and another one at like 4:30 a.m. I'm like, what are you up to? Anyway, oh yeah, I forgot a part. If we backtrack a little bit, I did miss a bit. So before she agreed to move on, we went around the house again to try and meet up and discuss things. And when we turned up, there was this gang member, bigger than the size of the door, massive dude.
Tats,
everything.
Badges, patches.
Face tats and all that. And I was basically, what we'd done is, the person that was with me who was basically like...
Private investigator.
Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say that.
So, yeah, this person I knew is like a private investigator.
He's huge.
He's solid boy. He turned up and he had his phone recording, live streaming to me, and I was ready to call the authorities if we needed, because they wouldn't even come around when we said it was sus. They said, nah, you have to be getting injured or whatever, which is, anyway, we won't even get into that. And so I was watching through this, getting ready to just call up. He went in, and I could see this guy through his camera, bigger than the door, massive. And this private investigator guy just stood there and talked to him real calmly and was like, so we need you to move on. You need you need to be talking to whoever's in charge here. And the guy was kind of just stalling, standing there.
Like, obviously they'd organised, because we had to give them notice once again, and obviously they'd just organised, the biggest guy to try and intimidate the landlord.
Yeah.
And
we didn't know that he was going to be there.
No, but that's what I mean. They knew that you guys were coming, so they'd just obviously...
Yeah, it was messed up. And he was massive, and even through the camera I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to need to call these cops ASAP. But luckily enough, the private investigator explained everything. He said, look, we just need you to move on. You need to give us a time. And the guy was stalling. He stood there and he said, we need a date. We need to know what's going on. Who can we talk to? You need to talk to your boss or whoever, and this has to be done within 24 hours. And finally, that's when I got an email from the head tenant saying that they were willing to move on. And we were like, yes, we're getting the house back. Sweet, this is good. This is progress. I was thinking, thank God, because that was my main concern, was getting back the property.
And meanwhile, once again, Hamish wasn't telling me all this at the time.
No, it wasn't.
He didn't want to stress me out.
I was just like, what good's it going to do? The day came where we could finally get them out, and we had agreed on a time via email. I'd given her plenty of time. I'd given her till lunchtime. She agreed on that, And in the morning I said, look, just another reminder via email, we will be there at this time, we'd like to meet, exchange the keys, all that sort of stuff. In the back of my mind, I was like, I do not trust this person. So I arranged for a locksmith to come, what was it, like 30 minutes after, it was 30 minutes after that time. And then during the day she messaged me and she said, I need till 2 p.m. And I said, well, whatever. If that's gonna, I need to borrow such and such trailer. Gave them till 2 p.m. And so I moved the locksmith till half an hour after that, and I was like, thank God he could actually do that. Turned up at 2 p.m. and it's the most surreal, weirdest feeling I've ever experienced. Like, you're kind of like looking around corners thinking, are we coming into like, what are we coming into? All of this stuff that's led up to it that I've seen says something not good.
And also keep in mind we've kept some details out just for like privacy and safety and stuff, so...
Yeah. Oh, it was bad.
It was bad.
We got there at 2 p.m. and we went to walk in, couldn't see anyone, whole house was unlocked, open, all the windows are open, airing out the house. I was like, here we go.
That's something you said though, the windows were open, like the house was clean every time, but the windows would always be open.
Yeah, that was a...
But Hamish you couldn't smell like weed or any distinctive smell.
Moving forward back to this locksmith bit, I was like, go in the house, get it cleared, and get this guy in. He agreed to a price which was mint. That's good. They're all old locks, so they're not real quick to change. You have to really file down everything. Old locksmith locks on the house.
Say what he said.
First I went into the house, no one was there. I was like, yes, this is awesome. And I looked around and there was still furniture inside, which I was like, oh shit, now I've got to deal with this. You can't just like throw away people's
legally
furniture.
You have to like store it, and if you have to like pay to store it, tough shit. As a landlord, you have to suck it up. You have to do it all for like a certain amount of time. You have to lodge it all with the tenancy tribunal, which is what Hamish said earlier. You have to like literally label. You have to list every item, how much it's worth. It took hours. It's not even worth anything. It's a shitty, gross couch.
Yeah.
What do you want me to label that as?
We had to though.
But you have to.
So we had to move.
But you were not happy about it.
No, I wasn't. I was pissed. So at that time I was like, cool, the furniture's in the house. At least we've got the, unattached shed. We can store it in and lock it in. Meanwhile, we went into the shed and the garage, electric garage door.
But stolen part of
that we'll get to that soon. So the locksmith came and he turned up. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there, come on, like, is someone going to turn up soon, whatever. Have a chat to him and he looks at me, he's like, what's going on here? And I was like, I'm just going to be straight up, man. There's been some dodgy people here. Can we just like get the locks changed? And, how much do you want? And he's like, oh, I can do all the locks for 500. And by that stage I was like, I don't care. Take the 500. I was like, all good, agreed. And he looked at me and he's like, oh, has it been some dodgy... He laughed, eh? He's like, some dodgy people in here, eh? And he laughed.
And what did he say? He's like, yep, done this before a few times.
He's like, this ain't my first rodeo. I've seen this often. I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God he's on board. So he was changing all the locks and everything, and I'm just...
Oh, by the way, we forgot to say, by this point it was all legal as well, because the tenant had said, yeah, we're moving out on this date at this time. So that was all...
We did say that.
Oh, we did say that? But it was all done properly.
Yeah, she agreed.
But we were just worried they were just going to come back and actually be like, no, actually we're not going to leave. So that's why we were like changing the locks.
So I had it all set up. Cool, we got the locks changed. We locked the whole house up and we just left. And we left it for like, 24 hours, 48 hours to see if anything was going to happen. Nothing happened. And so we went back. And in between this period, I was emailing saying, look, you said your stuff was going to be moved out. I gave you till the afternoon, like, what's going on? Constantly lying to me. I said, we are going to leave the shed open with all your furniture in it. So we had to move all of the furniture into the garage, store it in there. We had to, because they'd stolen the locking mechanism off the garage door, the electric garage door, we had to like drill big planks of wood through the door and like lock it with a drill every day. So we said every day, and this...
Well, no, it was one day first because she was like, no, we're going to come pick it up.
Oh, yeah, it was one day. So we said,
but of course,
on a Wednesday, we will leave the shed open between 10 and 4, light hours. You can come get your stuff. I don't need to be there. Come grab it, because otherwise I have to piss around with it, right? So they said to come. They didn't come that day. And so I said, all right, I'm going to, for the next week, it's going to be open from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. and I was just praying they'd take it. Meanwhile, I was emailing her going, look, you need to come get your stuff or else we need to find methods of disposing of it. You know, it's your obligation, your responsibility, trying to, you know, encourage you to take it nicely. So all this stuff was in there. I'm like, you can have it, right? We don't want it. And during the night, someone came in, kicked open the door, went into the garage, and it was real weird. They didn't steal any of their own stuff. They went in there and they slept in there, which, you know, probably that's pretty sad.
They full on like broken.
Yeah, they tapped back into the electricity, slept in there, and I was like, okay, well, we'll just fix the door and patch it up even better. Like, what are you doing? That's so random. That went by. I said, this is getting ridiculous now. We've had break-ins. We're trying to give you your stuff. Like, please, you know, please take it. Please take it.
And it was so frustrating with all this because, of course, because we had a break-in, we had to like lodge it with the police, we had to lodge it with insurance.
It was a waste of time.
The stupidest stuff, but you have to, like...
Remember the cop said to me, they're like, well, what do you want us to do? I was like, what do you mean, what do I want you to do? What am I supposed to do in this situation?
Yeah, like, we just wanted to make sure we were covered for insurance sake, in case insurance was like, oh, have you, like, told the police? You know?
Yeah.
Next thing, we haven't covered our backs.
Definitely. We just ended up repairing the door for like $200. Wasn't even, you know, it's just more money.
Who cares about that? It was just funny. We were like, just come take it.
Yeah, come take it.
Who's breaking back in? Like, obviously it was someone that was at the property prior.
Surely.
Because who else would know it was all in there? Who else would go to that effort? I don't know.
Thinking back now, they may have done it to get stuff that was hidden in the garage.
True.
It
may have been hidden in a couch or in a mattress or something.
There could have been stuff hidden, and that would make more sense now thinking about it. Anyway, so we got them out. We gave her these warnings and saying, come get your stuff. And then she finally agreed at like 3 a.m. one night, just throw all the stuff out. And when I got that, screenshotted it. Next day, skip bin on the front. Boom, we're throwing everything.
All the curtains in the house too were like, we're just going to get rid of everything.
Oh, everything was.
By the way, we'd spent so much money. Once my granddad passed, we spent some money. We did the whole house, like renovated it. We put in like new carpet. We painted everything, made it look all beautiful. We wanted it to be like a really nice place to live for someone, you know?
Yep. So they got out, cool. We got the furniture out finally. That was a godsend. And then I said when me and this other person who was helping me was in there, we were in there and we both were like, oh, man, we're both feeling a little like dicey. It looked clean as, it looked real clean. And I was like to the other person, I'm like, I'm going to buy some meth test kits and we'll just, you know, we'll have a look around the house, see what's going on. So these little test kits that you can do yourself, they go up to concentrations of meth of 1.5 micrograms per 100 meters squared. And if anything's over that, it's like by the, you know, the standards of housing, it's classed as unsafe, uninhabitable to live in. So we went around, did all these tests, boom. Headaches galore. I was like, what the hell? And then looked at the results, and every single part of the house was like over 1.5 micrograms per 100 meters squared. And I was just like, lock the house up, get out. This is me. I didn't expect this. This is beyond messed up.
This was like your worst nightmare. Like you were like, hopefully it's not anything like that. But let's check.
Weed.
Yeah, exactly. We were hoping that someone was just growing some tree in there or something.
But no, it detected everywhere.
Yeah.
And this is where I had insurance, and I felt like okay, this is all right.
That was the next journey.
Yeah, the story goes on. And so we'd got them out. They hadn't been back. All the stuff was gone. These dodgy people had moved on, and I contacted insurance, and I was like, hey, what's the go here? I've done these test kits, here's the photos, and all of the rooms are coming up over, you know, this amount of concentration. What are the steps in claiming for insurance? And they said, oh, there's this new report that's come out which goes against the laws that were currently in place, saying that if any room is under a concentration of I think it was 13 micrograms per 100 meters squared, that they would not pay out any insurance money, and it is classed as safe. Even though we had headaches, and even though if something is over 1.5 micrograms per 100 meters squared, it's, you know, legally you can't rent it out again. You've got to get it cleaned. So there's this grey area between 1.5 and 13 where they won't pay insurance.
Which is a huge difference.
It's massive. That's 12 times the concentration, 11 times the concentration that it says in the law, but this new, it's called like a Gluckman report or something, that the government decided to abide by, and then the insurance companies were like, well, if they're doing it, we'll start doing it.
Because of course it's better for the insurance company not to have to pay people if it's just a little bit of meth, like,
yeah,
they'd rather have a higher limit.
They would only pay out if it was over the 13 micrograms, and I was just sitting there thinking, oh my god. So
and keep in mind, Hamish was on the phone to insurance for hours, once again, like multiple times, hours and hours, getting advice, figuring out what the go was, la la la.
As I understood it, it was a scapegoat of how they get out of paying for these sorts of things. And so I'm thinking, I hope these people have absolutely rinsed this place with meth at this point.
Yeah, because otherwise we can't rent it out. If we go to sell it, we have to say, hello, we're trying to sell this house, it's got meth in it.
Yeah.
Or we have to pay out of our own pocket to fix it.
Yeah.
Which we'll explain soon.
You are going to hear about the craziness.
So this is something really important for you guys. If you do, like a lot of you guys are our age, older, slightly younger. If you are looking into ever having like an investment property or renting out a property, when you are getting your insurance, like ask these types of questions. Ask what the payout limits will be. Ask how you can put in like sensors these days. It's such a big problem here in New Zealand, unfortunately. It's very sad and it's everywhere, and it's definitely something you need to like look into if you are going to have property, because just wait till you find out how much this was, although I probably will put it in the title.
Yeah, getting a meth test done before new tenants move in and regularly testing is important, because if it gets to the point where the house was, has meth everywhere, if you don't have that first test saying it was clear, the tenant can come back and say, no, it was people before us.
Yeah, they can say, it wasn't us.
So, I mean, naturally everyone's going to do that straight away, right? Like, if you're doing dodgy stuff. Cool. So, I was talking to insurance. They told me this thing about this report and how it needs to be over 13 micrograms. In my head, I'm thinking, here we go. It's going to come back at 11 micrograms and they're not going to pay it a single cent. So I was stressing. I said to him, cool, all right, can we get this, this meth test, this lab meth test done? And he said, yep, you're going to have to pay for that initially until it's proven that, it is over this amount. And it's turned out to even get that report done was like $1,400. So I was like, well, we have to get it done.
Organise that.
We got it done. They went in. Sweet, they did the test. And luckily, it came back that some of the rooms were at concentrations of like...
Luckily.
Well, by this stage, I was thinking...
It needs to be.
It needs to be, right?
Because we knew there was meth there because of the tests that Hamish did.
The small tests, yeah. And it was over... Some of the rooms were over like 60 micrograms.
A lot.
Was one at like 70, I think?
I can't remember.
But yeah.
I mean, I don't know what that means in terms of how much drugs or like how many times people did the drugs or what the situation is. But all we know is like that amount compared to the old limit of 1.5.
Yeah, it's big.
60.
It's huge. But to cook, I think if they cook it, it's like hundreds. Like
yeah, I don't think they were like making meth in the house, were they? They were just obviously something else.
That's what the insurance people said. If it was over like 200, they're cooking it, and if they're smoking it lightly, it'll be under 13. And if they're smoking and maybe selling it, whatever, and sitting it around the place, it will be high between those numbers. So I was just thinking, sweet, all right, thank God we can get insurance on this place.
You should see the reports they do too. They're really cool, like super detailed. They have like maps of the house with like colour coding of like how much meth is in each area.
Just every room red, basically.
Basically, everything was just red, meth riddled.
Yeah, and that's why we had headaches and things like that.
And I knew about all of what was happening by this point.
Yeah, and so the next steps were we had to get them to come in and clean the whole house. We had to pay, the excess or whatever for the insurance. That's fine. So we did that and we got this underway. They said to me they would only pay up to, $50,000 to repair the house. And, to get it ready, that's all they'll pay up to. And I thought, oh, that'll be sweet as.
They also paid us for loss of rent for a certain amount of time too, until the house was livable, which was amazing. Definitely make sure you've got that if you have a rental.
So they paid, lost rent between the period of finding out there was meth and the point where the house was clean, like washed. So not in a good state where it's all looking good, because this meth...
Just when it's like livable.
So the meth, when you wipe down the walls and all of the like silver fixtures and fittings, it like corrodes everything. So it destroys the whole inner house basically to clean it.
Yeah, that's the process. You can talk about the process. So like, finally got the insurance. They said they'd pay up to 50,000, and then we had to replace anything where what do you say, like airflow. So range hood, oven, heat pumps.
There was an HRV system in there. We couldn't replace it because we couldn't afford to.
Yeah.
In the end.
So all of that had to be completely replaced. We had to rip up the carpet, scrub the walls.
Carpet, so anything
scrub the doors
that can absorb. So cushion stuff, so like carpet, curtains, all the curtain rails.
But we'd already chucked them out.
No.
I thought we did with the first skip bin.
No, it was. Oh yeah, I think we did actually.
Yeah,
you're right.
And then we were like, damn, because we couldn't have afforded it with how much we got paid out. But anyway.
Remember, we did the house up prior with new carpet, so that was all ruined. Ripped all that out. Everything. It went down to a skeleton. It took about 5 to 6 months to get sorted. So remember, there's loss of rent because it got to the point where it was clean, but we still had to fix the rest of the stuff up.
Yeah, you still had to paint it all. You had to repaint all the doors. You had to replace all the door handles and everything that literally like melted, because obviously the stuff they use to clean the house is like hardcore to get the drugs out. It's chemicals, right? So I imagine that being your job too. Like, they have safety gear on and everything.
They get paid well. They get paid. So don't.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, freaky. Like, the chemicals they're using are like intense.
PPE though, you're all covered. Got all the house. It got recarpeted, repainted. Had to replace all these fixtures, fittings.
And think like even stuff like repainting all the doors and stuff. Like, it was just
taking off every door, the 30 doors in the house, and then if you put on a too thick a coat on the door to try and get rid of the chemicals that have ruined it makes it so the doors are slightly bigger.
Also remember,
and then you can't rehinge them.
Remember the chemicals they use to wash the door, wash the meth off the doors and everything. Literally, like when you paint over that afterwards, it would like melt and disintegrate. Like the paint wouldn't stick. You would
see it through one coat of paint. So you had to do like 2 or 3 coats of paint, and then what happens is the paint on the door builds up to the point where the doors don't fit properly, and then so you got to sand them back. Just a nightmare. All in all, the end result, the cost was like about 58,000, somewhere around there. So no, about 55, 58, somewhere between there. By the time you did bins and things.
Yeah.
So they paid out 50 grand. We had to pay the rest, and we got the house ready to be able to be sold. Everything had been cleaned. The report had cleared it all. When we sold the house, we declared what had happened. Gave reports showing
so we
that it's
sold the house. To be honest, we were kind of traumatised by that experience. It was our first experience renting out a house, and we were traumatised. And
well, it's just
we just didn't want to ever.
We gave her. I felt like we gave her a good chance. I was really like kind and nice to her.
Yeah, good price rent. Like, we're just doing it for like right reasons. You know, to me it was like a house that I found very sentimental because it was my grandparents' house. So we were kind of like, we just want to keep it and like keep it in the family for like Porter one day or something like that, you know. So we just wanted someone in there that would look after it, that was nice, that was all good, and it's not what happened.
Well, we thought she was. Who knows? Maybe she owed money to someone.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they took over the house to use it to sell. Look, point is, don't trust anyone. You got to be very careful. Be savage. Don't trust references
because they could be anyone.
Yeah, they're fake. 100% that reference we checked was fake. All those references. And it's very hard to get people out of a house. It's very expensive when there's meth damage. $58,000.
And that's without, we didn't replace curtains. We had to sell it without curtains. Like, we
got a family friend to help fix our house. So had we not done that,
if we were paying,
probably would have cost like 80 grand or something.
Yeah.
But moral of the story is that it's quite sad. Meth destroys your investments.
I guess it was just like really eye-opening as well. Like, we'd never experienced like drugs on that level. Like, just seeing like what drugs like that can do to people is really, really sad as well. As if anyone wants to be addicted to that, as if anyone wants their family or friends to be addicted to it, or, you know, be in those circumstances. So it was a very like just shit situation just to see all of that. It was a very shit situation personally for us, for the stress, for the home that, you know, wasn't just a home, it was also like a really special home to us. Just it was just a really sad situation in so many different ways, and a big lesson. And
if something looks clean, don't assume it's clean, because damn, that place.
And you know
looks
what
spotless.
though, when we used to go house hunting in the mountain in Papamoa, like, we would go look at really beautiful houses, and the real estate would be like, I have to let you know there is some meth damage in this house. Like,
we're talking houses that backed onto the golf course that had pools and were like stunning.
Flash, like, it doesn't discriminate. It's not just certain socio-economic groups or anything like that. It's everywhere. So it just so happened that we ended up with quite a few gang affiliated people in our house in the end.
Seemed like it.
There was also like tagging and stuff in it. There wasn't in the actual house. The house, like Hamish said, was perfect, but in the garage there was a bit of tagging.
I really
but
felt
we were kind of like, oh well, at least we can just paint over that area. It wasn't like a major.
I felt sorry for the neighbours too. Like, I didn't expect to inconvenience them. I didn't know what was going on for such a long time. You know, if no one tells you, you don't know as the landlord, and if no one contacts you...
And of course, we don't know exactly what had happened there. We can just kind of assume, and like afterwards, like, you know, someone that we had working on the house found like a whole lot of little bags, and I was like, surely they were like selling it, or... There
was little holes right through the window frames where they'd obviously put out wired scanners or something to...
And there was something poured in, like there was some kind of drain.
Yeah, some waste poured into like
I don't know, they took photos of it all when they did like the big investigation, but...
They just started dumping stuff, and if people look pretty dodgy...
And there were all sorts of different people there too, like, don't know if they were like buying them and using... I don't know. We don't know for a fact, of course, but there was, every time you went, different people... Stolen cars.
Two or three groups of people that I was like, who are these people? Yeah. She just keeps saying they were friends staying with her, and I can't kick them out if that's the case.
Can't do anything. You can't be like, prove it. Like,
I think they're allowed to stay in there for like 3 or 4 days, but I'm not going to like sit outside in a car with
binoculars like, they haven't left.
Day 4. Like, who's going to do that? I think at one stage the cops thought I was removing stuff from the house without the tenant's permission and started having a go at me as well, and I'm like, I actually... got proof via email if you want to see it, like, and that's where I walked out.
That's one thing as well, like no. One thing Hamish always does with everything, business, this situation, anything where, you know, you're talking to someone, he literally will email proof everywhere. Everything he's doing, get them to confirm it, get them to reply, yes, like, we had a phone call, this is what we discussed, yes, that's what we discussed. Proof of like what we'd contacted the tribunal about, just like always just making sure that you've got that proof, because otherwise like people start getting a bit like, oh, did you do this properly? Or
and I was almost going to have to go to court when we were taking, so when she abandoned the property, I was going to have to turn up to court. The only reason I didn't is because she responded, and at court, even if she didn't show up, I had to turn up and be like, alright, I'm here ready, and if she didn't turn up, they're like, oh, it's ruled in your favour.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
She only replied when you said that the court date was issued, eh?
Yeah,
because he had obviously let her know, like, okay, so we've got to go to court on this day because you're not replying to me, and then lo and behold, like 12 hours later, she's like, oh, sorry, I've just been busy.
Should we read them, the final thing? Do you want to read the email out I sent?
Yeah.
So the final email...
This is the last. Hurrah.
She had the nerve to ask for her bond back.
The bond was already spent just on skip bins in the end, just getting rid of her like property. A while after this was all said and done, in the process of, you know, insurance doing their thing, getting all their contractors and stuff, sorting stuff out, whatever, the tenant, the original tenant, finally contacted Hamish and was just kind of like, hey Hamish, just wondering how we can organise like the bond, like settle the bond, because of course when you go into a property you pay bond, and then the bond gets released back to the tenant when they move out if there's no damages and stuff like that. And at this point the tenant didn't really know that we were clued up as to, you know, the meth damage and everything, of course, because we didn't say anything to her or anyone else about that. We just waited till they were moved on. And so this is what Hamish responded to her. She messaged at like 4 AM, mind you, asking for a bond back. So random.
Once again.
So Hamish said, hi tenant, you know, name. We have been doing more investigation and tests on the property, and we've found out that the whole house and garage are contaminated with methamphetamine. We expect the whole house and garage needs to be stripped and gutted. This is beyond disappointing. We're investigating the total cost of damages, which will take weeks to look into, which was obviously true. So far we expect it to be thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket. We trusted you in this house. We put new carpet, painted the walls, did our best to make sure this was a safe home for you and your child. It's really sad to see it come to this. The house cannot be rented or sold as it's too dangerous with the contamination. Will you be able to pay for all the meth damage and the other house repairs? We also had someone break into the shed last night. Terrible to see this when we had tried our best to arrange a time for you to come and get your goods. Very disappointed in the whole experience, and needless to say,
No response.
no response. Are you hungry?
There you go. Terrible. The worst.
Terrible experience.
And it cost, yeah, like I said, 58,000, probably 8,000 out of our pocket.
Yeah, about 8,000 out of our pocket, plus a bit. How much was like you have to pay the excess
the lost and stuff.
And we did lose a lot more rent than it looked like because once they'd cleaned it, we still had like a couple of months, if not more.
Okay.
Come here. A couple of months, if not more, where you know, we had to wait for it to be painted and set up and then to sell the house. We had no one in it while we were like trying to sell the house, which took a few months, so take a lesson from us.
Let us know below if anyone's had these similar experiences too. We'd be keen to hear.
Bye-bye.